Chiefs are on for a Super Bowl rematch, and they're hurting. Can they get it done? Yes, they can, and this is how today on Locked On Chiefs.
From the land of the free and the home of the Chiefs, this is the Locked On Chiefs podcast.
Welcome back, friends and neighbors. This is Locked On Chiefs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. That's what we do around here. You everydayers know that and appreciate it, and we appreciate you. Couldn't do it without you. If you want to be one of them, make sure you're subscribed and do all the things and get on the text line at 816-357-8781. If you want to get on at that breaking news level, we always run it down. We do our best from our perspectives. Chris is an analyst, works on all the financials, the cap space, everything. And I am on the flip side, old coach kind of thing, strength conditioning, work the X's and O's, old school, new school. I don't know if we're good enough to say that, but together we make up a whole. It's been going on 9 seasons so far. We welcome you in if you don't know us already, so appreciate that. We're going to run it down for you. Tough week 2 matchup. Got to be pretty pissed off. I think that's probably a good thing for some of these players. They have to get ready to bring it this time, and that all goes into an attitude, in my opinion. We're going to talk that through all the way. What are the must-win matchups? That's coming up a little bit later in the show. What do they have to get done in order to get a W? And then what could throw it all off? What are the X factors that could live positive or negative in this team's head for this ball game? And finally, we will give you our predictions. Welcome in. This is Chris Clark, my partner over at KC Chiefs Corner. I'm Ryan Tracy, the founder of Rogue Analytics and Performance Consulting. You can find me at NFL 33, where I just dropped my league-wide preview for this week, as well as rgrfootball.com. This episode is brought to you by Mazda, and like our players, we sweat every single detail because when you make every move count, pulling off the unexpected is only the beginning. Stay tuned for highlights for this week's Moving the Game Forward from Mazda, Move and Be Moved. I think that there's a lot that goes into this team, and it all comes back to attitude for me. I am less scared of the Eagles' performance last week. I should probably say that I wasn't very scared of them going into the Super Bowl either, so what do I know? I might be underestimating them a little bit. But I come back to the lack of performance that we saw in Kansas City. And for me, this team, this game is more about what the coaches and the leaders of this team do to raise it up, to take it back up to where we have a high expectation, and can they deliver that? If this team plays its A game, even an A- game, I feel that they can beat this version of the Eagles and come away feeling better about not just this week, but about their season.
I think it goes further than that, actually, because when you look at this game and you look at what they did last week, they came out, they got punched in the mouth early. They couldn't do anything right in the first half, offense or defense. Then at the very end of the first half, they have that fire drill, and they're able to kick a field goal right before halftime. That led them to basically scoring pretty much in every single drive they had in the second half, and their offense looking a lot better. Defense looking better, not great. So to me, when you look at how this is playing out, I do think that the loss of Xavier Worthy really hampered them in the first half last week. But when you go to this week, you have a game plan for the Eagles. You have an idea as to what the Eagles are going to do. You have something that you can look at from last week on both the offense and defense and say, this is what the Eagles tried to do against the Dallas Cowboys. Obviously, it's not going to be 100% the same. You get that. All that makes sense. But you're going to have an idea as to what the Eagles are going to try to do in some ways. But the other thing that really sticks out to me is Kansas City didn't play well at all. And I don't even know what I would give them as a grade, even now, looking back at that game, what I would give them as a grade. I don't know that they even need an A- game to beat the Eagles with the way the Eagles played the second half against the Cowboys last week. Now, maybe that's partially because of the rain delay. Maybe not. I don't know. I know the Eagles are going to be up for this game. I know the Chiefs are going to be up for this game. But when you really break it down, Kansas City did nothing and showed nothing new last week at all. And I can't imagine that's going to be the case 2 weeks in a row.
And that's a fair point. And we know that from times past that Andy Reid will not only plan for the team in front of him, but he will game plan for the team after them. And up to like 3 games out, maybe that was part of the shortcoming of their contest against the Chargers, is that as we've seen this team have a propensity to do, maybe they overlooked what's right in front of them. Didn't realize the threat was that real. And we're looking towards this game. Maybe they have some things to pull out. Now that gets limited by who you have available. Rasheed Rice not going to play, obviously on suspension. With Xavier Worthy, who was back at practice in a limited capacity, moving around at least, I don't see there's any way that he plays this week. So that's completely different. Whatever you had maybe been planning for before the Chargers game, that seems to be out the window if it was going to be nearly as focused as we thought the Chargers game plan was going to be on Xavier Worthy.
Yeah, and I agree with that, but I will say that you have a full week of game planning after Worthy goes out to figure out what are we going to do to try to attack the Eagles. You also have an extra day where the people that are not prepping for specifically the Chargers game can be watching Eagles film and determining what do we need to be trying to focus on, what do we need to be game planning and trying to get to do when we start taking on the Eagles next week, because there are some coaches and there are some people in the front office that aren't going to be focused on that week's game. They're going to be looking ahead. So you definitely have the ability to do that as well, since the Eagles played a day earlier. But I look at this game and I look at what the Eagles did last week. They didn't look like a Super Bowl team, and they lost a ton of people. So I understand that there's a huge turnover on their defense. I understand that maybe their star wide receiver, A.J. Brown, was dealing with an injury. That's possible too. Is a hamstring injury, which is what it sounds like he had during the preseason, going to magically fix itself in a week? Probably not. And the fact that he played the game tells me that they're trying to get him to play through it. So to me, I can't imagine that it's going to be something that's going to get better. And he's probably still going to be limited this week. But you look at what this game is going to mean for Kansas City, and you can't afford to be 0-2. Now, do the Chiefs have the ability to come back from 0-2? Yeah, they do. But you can't afford to be 0-2.
No. It makes life very difficult. And that means that you have to win where you can win, and you have to emphasize your strengths against this particular team. That means matchups. And the number one matchup that we have to talk about is Patrick Mahomes being able to not just execute what he has to do, but raise everything else, and that's next. It's almost the weekend. It's time to look back and crown last week's MVP on who delivered, powered by DoorDash. Just like every win on Saturday with DoorDash Streaks, saving more every time you order. These players deliver when it matters most, and let's break it down. For the Chiefs, it was Patrick Mahomes doing everything he possibly could to deliver in a huge way, to lift the team onto his shoulders and carry them through, whether scrambling, running, throwing from a horizontal position, whatever he needed to do. When the pressure's on, you can rely on him. He came through, no hesitation, no delay. And if you have been watching week after week, the performance year after year is the same. It wasn't a fluke. Patrick Mahomes is on a streak. Let's hope that they can continue to support him. Just like Patrick Mahomes delivered for the Chiefs, DoorDash delivers for your Saturdays. With DoorDash Streaks, you save every Saturday you order, stack up on all season, and you could save up to $250, including $100 in DoorDash credits. Order this Saturday. Keep the streak alive. Fuel your game day. Only with DoorDash. Terms apply. Promo period through 11/18. The NFL season is on us, and FanDuel is making sure that you're getting ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if that bet wins, you get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love using FanDuel because it's all in one place, and the app is super simple to get after. Whether I want to do something ahead of time, put together a parlay, or whatever I'm looking for, jumping in live is even an option. It makes life one-stop shopping to get into the action. So, if you're ready and you are ready to play, get in there, download the FanDuel app right now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. And that's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet to get that 300 bonus bets. Check it out at FanDuel.com. A lot goes into this game, and it's one of my favorites because I'm always out to prove that this team is different than last year's team, et cetera, et cetera. And I love the head-to-head against the previous Super Bowl matchup. But this one's dangerous because, as you said earlier, going 0-2 is a serious condition. Not insurmountable, but something you don't want to get into because it changes. I don't think your stars, but your baseline players, your guys that start that are not, able to elevate their game as much as say the stars, especially like guys that play special teams. You start to feel more pressure. You start to get tighter. You start to feel like you have to do extraordinary things instead of just playing your game. the matchups come into that because everybody's got their own, and you don't want to hype that heap that pressure on top of it. One that has to be won is I'm not a huge proponent of Jalen Hunt. A lot of people feel like he's an up and comer. I think that remains to be seen, but certainly going up against a rookie left tackle and Josh Simmons, it's a matchup we have to watch. And it's more so for me, not the one-on-one. Josh got beat with a little bit of speed, which is normally not like him. Best feet in his draft class, and maybe the last 3, to tell you the truth. So I feel like he
Love
and
hearing
Kingsley.
that. Sorry,
It makes me feel a little bit better, to tell you the truth too. But he and Kingsley, I thought, had a solid outing. But now they need to build on that. And if they do, and he can kind of corral some of that, I think that thwarts some of what Hunt wants to do. And so I don't feel that this is a mismatch. I don't feel that this is maybe even if they had flipped their backers, if they were sending Smith, Nolan Smith's more polished and honestly has more of a repertoire, in my opinion, to attack Simmons. It doesn't sound like they're going to lean that way from what we found out yesterday. If you guys missed it, go back and listen to the crossover that we did yesterday. I'm comfortable that if they have to leave Josh on an island, and we know that they've done that with lesser players, I feel like this is a matchup that not only do they have to win, that they could win.
They have to win it, but I think the bigger thing for me when you look at this is it's just a question of how is his season going to progress. Because if you watched him in the preseason, you felt good about where he was in the preseason. The first game, I don't think took anything away from him. I don't think watching him play in the first game took anything away from what the preseason showed you. So can he be better? Absolutely. You can always get better as a player. And I'm not saying that he can't get better. I'm just saying he played well enough that I feel good about that position right now. And this is a bigger test to me than the Chargers were, because the Eagles like to vary things and they have a bunch of different pass rushers. It's not just the guy that he's normally going to be going up against. He's also going to be dealing with Uche probably and some more speed out there, and maybe even Zadarius Smith. They're going to switch things up on him and they're going to try to attack him. And I wonder, because the thing that really surprised me against the Chargers was there wasn't a lot of stunts. There wasn't a lot of twists. I can't imagine the Eagles are going to go into this game and do the same thing. So I think that Suamataia and Simmons are going to be challenged in this game, but this is exactly what you need to see from them. This is a big game for them, and you have to be willing to put them under the pressure right now. I'm going to flip it over to the other side and say the reality for me, Jawan Taylor needs to get his stuff cleaned up. Period. His matchup is not horrible. I think that he'll be fine matchup wise, but he has to get to a point where he's not killing drives. And the Eagles, I think, are going to take advantage of knowing that he likes to try to get off the ball quickly. So I do think that that's part of the matchup that he'll have to worry about. But he has to play better than he played last week. And if this offensive line can play, and honestly, they played pretty good for the most part. Yes, Patrick was pressured. Yes, he had to make some plays outside the pocket and do what he normally does. But it wasn't like he was under fire the entire time. He was under fire at times, but he wasn't under fire every single snap, and it wasn't always coming from the same position like it was mostly last year. So to me, getting the things cleaned up on both sides at the tackle position makes this game a lot easier for Kansas City to win and sets them up to be able to, I won't say run the table, but get a string of wins. Because if this offensive line gets going in the right direction, they're going to be a lot better team than they showed against the Chargers.
Agreed. Now, the other matchup for me that somebody's got to win, and I don't have a specific person on the Chiefs side, but Xavier Worthy's probably not going to play. Jalen Royals has not practiced, is not available, will not play. That is for certain. Someone has to step up and take advantage of the matchups that are there. The best defenders last week for the Eagles in pass coverage were two of their linebackers. That's what says it all to me. So it's there to be exploited. Now, Cooper Jean, good player, played well last week. So getting things in the middle of the field. Right, exactly. Getting things in the middle of the field, maybe a little bit taller order. So it's got to be the guys that are lining up on the edges. As our friend Louie pointed out yesterday, Dory Jackson, very rough day. Going to be on the right side of their defense for the most part. So that player that lines up to Patrick Mahomes' left, that doesn't have as much of a side adjustment connection with Patrick because of the drop back has to be able to see it and take advantage of it, run that stem as hard as they can, and make last-minute cuts. No rounding, no anything. Things that Tyquan Thornton has not been one of his weaknesses, shall we put it that way. One of the things that Juju Smith-Schuster does well, but might not have the oomph to exploit it at this part. Who else stands up? That's what has to happen. That's a matchup against those outside corners. The Chiefs must win.
I talked about this and you laughed and you were clapping on the crossover for me talking about this. To me, this actually comes down to the Chiefs have to win when it comes to really it's probably all the linebackers, but I'm going to put it on Nick Bolton. Nick Bolton has to have a big game against Saquon Barkley. That's the reality. If they can slow down the running game, it doesn't have to be stop. It's slow it down. If they can slow down the running game and they can make Jalen Hurts try to beat them, especially if you're dealing with an A.J. Brown that isn't 100% or close to 100% and doesn't have the explosion he normally does, they're already going to be without a guy like Dallas Goedert more than likely because he did not practice 2 days in a row. So we're guessing he's probably not going to play. It's possible, obviously, but it kind of seems like he won't be playing. To me, this is a matchup where they have to stop Saquon Barkley. He wasn't great against Dallas, but they didn't really try to focus on it either. So I do think that this is a matchup that if Kansas City wins, this is a way for them to win the game because I don't think that the Eagles are going to be able to pass the ball all over the Chiefs, especially if A.J. Brown is hurt and they can't run the ball consistently.
Yeah, I agree. Now, winning matchups is one thing. You can go into it. There's always a curveball. There's an X factor that must be formatted into it. I think he wears 21. Jaden Hicks is my X factor. We're talking about him next. This episode is brought to you by Mazda's moving the game forward. For those who believe it's not just about playing the game, it's about redefining it. There are moments that do more than just put points on the board. They do more than move crowds, move culture. They keep the game moving forward. Patrick Mahomes does that whenever they need him to. He's able to elevate, especially when he had to run the ball and make it the most effective that we've seen in probably 2 seasons. He was able to do that against the Chargers down in Brazil. Same flight as everybody else who looked lackluster, not Mahomes. That's got to be contagious. He's got to keep it moving forward by picking up his teammates and putting them on his back, whether it's a full-size truck or a little sports car. He can do that. When you follow the moves when you follow what moves you, the unexpected is only the beginning, and there's more to every highlight. There's more to every Mazda vehicle as well. Mazda, move and be moved. Now, this is the fun part. I always like to throw out a couple of crazy ones because you never know. And not knowing is Spag's MO for the most part. And I thought Jaden Hicks got put in a position last week that he was not terribly prepared for, didn't perform up to his normal standard. I expect him to take a step forward, not only this week, but as a second season progresses. And he's somebody that without Goddard out there, I think he's going to be in a position to patrol a little bit more, to not have to get in kind of man situations, to do what he does best. And in my opinion, that is to play in space, to bring the hammer down to someone, not have to try to keep up with someone. And so I think this plays into what Jaden Hicks does well. I expect him to make a couple of plays and be that X factor.
My X factor, can Spags show that he can change? That's my X factor. Spags, I love him as a defensive coordinator. He's been fantastic for Kansas City. The problem is he has tendencies and he continues to put players in positions that I don't think that they're going to be successful in. Shamari Connor is one of them. He should not be playing the nickel corner spot. I think it should be Trent McDuffie. Obviously, at this point, I don't know that the Chiefs feel comfortable with that because I think that they're still trying to feel like Christian Fulton is back to 100%, and maybe if he can get to that point, you feel like you can do that. But to me, this is a Spags game. If he wants to win this game, he has to show that he is not going to continually put guys in the wrong position. And he did that time after time and after time against the Chargers. And I want to be clear. I'm not sitting here trying to say that Justin Herbert didn't play well. Justin Herbert played out of his mind. He hit throws and continually push the ball into windows that normally speaking you would not see QBs try. He knew he had to do that to beat the Chiefs. So there is a part of that when you look at their defensive performance against the Chargers that you have to take into account. Sometimes you're just going to get beat, but you can't continuously put your guys in the wrong situation in going into or going and playing the wrong positions, I guess, with Connor. I still don't understand why he's the starter at safety. I think he would be better as the third safety with Jaden Hicks being the starter. And I know Hicks had a bad game last week, but it's also, you also saw last week that they probably don't fully trust Jaden Hicks, and we kind of saw why too. So at the same time, it's going to be rough until they get that figured out. And, going back to, this is kind of a matchup scenario as well.
Mm-hmm.
You have to figure out that you have to put somebody on Jalen Hurts. Is it going to be a linebacker? I don't know. You talked about Jaden Hicks. I honestly wouldn't care if they use Jaden Hicks as a spy on Hurts at times. I think he has the ability to do that.
Yeah, I wouldn't doubt it. I think Connor could as well. Yep. Luckily, they could switch those two guys out, so you don't necessarily know where it's coming from. I think that's an advantage as well. There's a few other guys that I think are possibilities, prospects to be an X factor. One is Chris Rowland-Wallace, who didn't play last week. Absolute crazy. You have to get better time from him. I do believe that if A.J. Brown plays, I stick Trent McDuffie on him all day long. I don't care where he goes. I don't need to pigeonhole McDuffie. I need to take away Brown. That's how I feel about the game plan. I think CRW could play a role in juxtaposing that along with Fulton and maybe who else. I don't know. On the other side, this is, I think, the point where not only do you have to be more deliberate in the run game, but you have to vary it a bit more. And I think that means Smith. You got to get to the edges. You got to run the pitch game. You got to run things that get him the ball in space. Those are the two guys that I see. Does either of them get you going?
I think Brashard Smith needs to have a big part in this game plan, and it doesn't necessarily have to be like he's getting 15 touches or he's on the field for 30 snaps. I mean, you don't have to do that, but if you put him in the right spots and you use him in the right parts of the field, I think that he can be a real weapon for this team. And this is a situation where I think that they ought to try to use him up against the Eagles. This is always going to be a tough game, regardless of when it was played. But week 2, you already lost one. You need to win this one. I would be using some of your hidden plays. You said something about Trent McDuffie that I thought was really interesting, and it's not necessarily McDuffie specifically. It's more about A.J. Brown. They need to have a game plan of an A game plan and a B game plan. And what I mean by that is they need to have an A game plan for if A.J. Brown looks like he's actually fully healthy, because you defend him differently if you think he's fully healthy. If you don't think he's fully healthy, I'm not saying you have to scrap everything from game plan A, but you need to change how you're going to be guarding him, because there's no reason to double him if he doesn't have the ability to beat you because he is still hampered. And you need to take that into account. So you need to have a different game plan in that sense. I look at this, and my X factor in this game, I honestly think it's going to be Juju Smith-Schuster. And a lot of people would say it should be Hollywood Brown. I don't think it should be Hollywood Brown, because Hollywood Brown doesn't need to be targeted 15 times like he was last week. You need to get Juju going. You need to use him, and you need to try to use him as wide receiver, I guess 2 or 3 at this point. I mean, you don't have a choice because Worthy's out. Rashee Rice isn't playing, so I guess he's wide receiver 2. But you need to be focusing and trying to get Juju the ball, because the reality is that if you continually feed Hollywood Brown, you're likely to be out with Hollywood Brown, without Worthy, without Rashee Rice. You don't want to be in that situation. I'm not saying you can't throw it to Brown, but you need to at least know that you have another wide receiver, because Tyquan Thornton is going to be the answer. He's shown that there are certain things he can't do. Yes, he can take the top off of defense. Yes, I think he can challenge the Eagles deep, and I think that will help. But you need to get Juju Smith-Schuster going in this game, and he can be very helpful in the middle of the field. Not Travis Kelce-esque, but similar in getting production in the middle of the field and in that intermediate zones.
Yeah, move the chains. That's what he's there for. Well, at the end of the day, I think this is a tough game. I think the number one thing that they have to do is they have to thwart what beat them last year. That is physicality. You got to want it. You got to make sure that no matter how hard they hit you, you hit them right back. That is, I think, a challenge for this team. I hope that they can raise to it. If they do, it's going to be last minute, in my opinion. I think this game could be a win for the Chiefs, but it's going to be 23-24.
You're going to be another tight one, and I think you're probably closer to it than I would have been, 2 weeks ago. I think that when you look at this game, Kansas City has to come out, and you're absolutely right. They need to be the physical team. They need to come out, and they need to punch the Eagles in the mouth. You lost last week because you didn't look like you were prepared, and you weren't ready for what the Chargers were going to come out and do. And I understand that you figured that they were going to do one thing. They did something completely different. Got to be able to adjust. But in this game, you have to come out, and you have to come out firing. You cannot go into this game and feel good about it if you go in and your first offensive possession, you get a 3-and-out. That can't happen in this game. You have to establish the run. Don't get me wrong. I hope they run the ball, but you cannot go 3-and-out, and you need to make sure that this offense gets started, because the Eagles have the ability, by hitting a couple of plays with a couple of players, to be up 2 or 3 scores, and then it's going to be a track meet the rest of the game, and you do not want that. So to me, I think this game is going to be closer than I really wish that I hate saying it's a 1-point game. I'm going to say that this is probably going to be 24-21 Kansas City. I do think Kansas City can win. I just don't see the Eagles being as consistent as they were last year, and with the injuries that they're dealing with at certain positions. We haven't even talked about Dickerson. We didn't think Dickerson was going to play based on our conversation with Louis yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
Now he practiced and practiced in full. So we'll see if he's available. If he is available, he's still got a very tough matchup against Chris Jones. If he's not, that's even a bigger matchup that really helps the Chiefs. And the other thing that we didn't mention, it does look like the Chiefs will be getting back Elmore Norman Lott for this game. He could play a big part down the stretch, rushing the passer as well.
Yeah, let's see what happens. I'm eager to see him in real live game action. We want to know what you think with your prediction. Put it down here in the comments on YouTube. Hit us on X. Get connected on all the audio platforms. We appreciate you being with us. It's always a slug. This is going to be a tight game. We are going to be live for you post game like we always are. So if you want to know what happened when this is all over, make sure that you get back here. We appreciate you. Thank you for spending your hard-earned time with us and taking the time to check out all assets of this team. We're going to have a good one. This is going to be a great game against the Eagles. Thanks for being here today, and we'll talk to you post-game.